It seems that every week we hear about a new TikTok trend. They always have a different name. They're always annoying and weird in slightly different ways. But the one thing that most of them have in common is that they are very thinly veiled excuses for being lazy. The TikTok community works hard at only one thing, and that is finding new ways to make their laziness seem trendy. And now they have a new one. It's called bed rotting. And it's as bad as it sounds. CBS News explains. Watch.
There's a new TikTok trend that could trigger depression in some people, and it's got a rather interesting name.
I know. Have you heard of this bed rotting?
No.
It's not something that sounds like something I would want to do, right? But I guess people want to do it, and it's actually the practice of lying in bed for long periods of time, sometimes for days, while binge watching TV or scrolling through social media and eating, of course. Now, influencers tout it as a form of self-care, but experts say the behavior is more typical of someone who's depressed.
Once again, the experts are on the scene to point out the immensely obvious. Thank God for the experts. What would we ever do without them? And we can certainly trust the experts on this one. As it turns out, it is not a healthy practice to become a voluntary invalid. Actually, it's better for a human, it turns out, to do things like move around and walk and maybe get some sun on occasion. If you're getting less fresh air and exercise than a prisoner in solitary confinement, that's a pretty good indication that you're making some very poor life choices. But then again, how bad can your life choices be if other people are doing the same thing?
Have you ever heard of bed rotting? It's something that I learned about last week, but it's something I've been doing for years off and on. And I didn't know it had a name for it. I just thought it was like just depression. And I'm sure you've been doing this too. It's a form of self-care, but you shouldn't do it too often because apparently it can be laziness. But basically it's where you just sit or lay in bed all day. You can eat snacks, watch Max. But some of the girlies, they're like high-tech and high-end version where they like do skincare and some spa treatments just from their bed. Normally in the past, if I stayed in bed all day, I would feel so guilty. But now that I've learned that this is a thing, I am no longer going to feel guilty for bed rotting.
Yes, why feel guilty for being an unwashed, sedentary bum? There are so many other unwashed, sedentary bums after all. It's a thing. It's a whole thing. How bad can a thing be if it's a thing? These are important philosophical questions, but bed rotting is somehow not the worst, or at least not the most overtly grotesque TikTok laziness trend to gain traction recently. A different but closely related trend is called depression rooms. And the depression room phenomenon involves TikTokers showing off their cluttered, filthy, bug-infested bedrooms, which have become unsightly garbage heaps because of their depression. Sometimes in the video, they'll clean their room and congratulate themselves for performing this basic daily chore for the first time in 9 months. In other videos, they make no attempt to clean, and they simply just give a tour of the toxic waste dump that they sleep in. Here's one example of the genre.
I've had a lot of people comment on my room and how messy it is. I'm pretty sure it comes from the aunties who are like, are you proud of this? You're disgusting. How can you let it get like this? I'm not proud of, how messy I let my room get. I think if you have depression or you suffer from depression or anxiety or any kind of mental health disorder, you understand that sometimes we just can't get up.
She just can't. She can't get up. Can't do it. She can record TikTok videos and edit them and post them and scroll the comments to see what people are saying about them, but she can't get up and clean her room. She just can't do it. Until she does it, of course. But the times that she doesn't do it, it's because she simply can't. This is a theme that emerges in many of these videos, like this one.
Okay, so I don't want to hear any slander or any hate on this video because I know a lot of you guys, a lot of people in the comments are going to deal with something like this, and I'm going to give you a sneak peek into my life. This is what happens when I get particularly stressed or anxious or depressed. I cannot clean anything, get organized. I can't do it.
Can't do it. Can't do it. She's physically incapable somehow in some way. Again, this is a theme.
By the way, I'm fine. I want to clean my room really, really badly. I can't. And I know some of you are going to understand that, and some of you are just going to be like, get up and do it. Just do it if you want to. I can't. Does anyone know what I mean? I can't.
Yeah, some of us are going to say get up and do it, because that actually is the answer. Just get up and do it. Stop whining and do it. You can do it. You can. Shut up and do it. So that's why your room is filled to the brim with useless junk that you bought because you can't clean up after yourself? Well, I saw an Old Navy shopping bag. You somehow managed to go to Old Navy. Against all odds, you figured out how to walk out of your house, get into your car, drive to Old Navy, walk around Old Navy, buy all those clothes with your dad's credit card. You could do that. You weren't too physically immobilized and crippled by your depression to do that thing you wanted to do. And yet when it comes to things you don't want to do, somehow your depression turns into paralysis. What an interesting medical phenomenon. I'm crippled by depression when I don't want to do things. Is it depression crippling you, or are you just lazy? That's called being lazy. That's like the definition of lazy. Actually, it's not a very interesting phenomenon because, again, you're just lazy. I mean, you may be depressed or you may not be, but one thing you definitely are is lazy. Let me ask you this. You say that you can't clean your room. What if I walked up to you with a giant bag filled with $10 million in cash and I said that I would give it to you if you cleaned your room? $10 million right here. I will give it to you right now if you clean the room. I bet you'd find a way to do it, wouldn't you? See, this is the difference between things like depression, ADHD, anxiety, and something like cancer or diabetes. Because if I offered you $10 million to not have cancer anymore, you couldn't take me up on the offer no matter how badly you wanted to. But if I offered you $10 million to no longer be crippled by depression, you would magically find a way. The same goes for ADHD and anxiety and similar quote-unquote mental health disorders. If you feel properly incentivized and interested, you can become a functional human being. You might walk around saying, I can't do this, I can't do that, I'm so depressed. And yet if the incentive was high enough, you'd figure out a way, wouldn't you? It's like the parents who insist that their 12-year-old son has ADHD and can't sit still, and yet even as they make that claim, that very same son has been sitting nearly motionless for 5 hours in front of a TV playing video games. He can sit still, it turns out. It's just that a lot of the time, especially in school, he doesn't want to. This is an important point. One of the great curses of our age is that people have been convinced that they don't have agency, that they are not rational, conscious agents making choices and acting freely in the world. The medicalization of every human foible we talked about at the beginning, every bad feeling, every unpleasant emotion plays a big part of this. People don't want to do things or they don't feel incentivized to do them, and then they're convinced that because of some kind of invisible disease, they can't do those things. This is the main reason why I object to depression being categorized as a disease. Depression is a feeling, it's a thought process. You decide how much power it has over your life. You decide that. The same cannot be said for other diseases. You have absolutely no power to decide how, say, hepatitis affects you. You can take medicine, you can do other things to try and manage it, but you can't use the force of sheer willpower to mitigate its impact on you. Yet that is exactly what you could do with depression or anxiety or one of these other things. You can get out of your bed and clean your room. You can do the thing you say you cannot do. You absolutely can. There is nothing physically preventing you. You choose not to. But the real problem with chalking up all this to, depression is that it masks the real epidemic that has long since gripped hold of American society in general, and especially the younger generations. Zoomers are not depressed. They are apathetic. And this may seem like a distinction without a difference, except that depression is supposedly a chemical function in the brain, even though the chemical imbalance theory has been shown to be bunk. But the apathy choking the life out of the youngest generation is a cultural problem, something ingrained in them practically from birth. This is the thing that ties together bed rotting and depression rooms and quiet quitting and all the rest of it. Not depression, but a general philosophical apathy, a nihilism. They don't care. They don't see meaning or purpose. It's a serious problem, no question about it. In fact, it's much deeper than any kind of chemical imbalance. And that's not the thing that's led them here, but rather a life full of digital stimulation, yet devoid of any kind of spiritual or moral formation. They don't really want anything. They have no goals, not because they're so deeply fulfilled, but because they're so deeply empty. Now, I don't say this applies to everyone in Gen Z, but it's a widespread epidemic, one that extends far beyond their generation, of course. We've all heard these complaints from employers who hire young people and say that they have no useful skills. But even worse, they don't care enough to learn the skills. They just don't care. They don't care about anything. Or at least they don't care about any of the right things. Now, the good news is that this is a problem that can be overcome, on an individual level especially. It means that all the people lying around complaining that they can't get up, they can't clean their room, they can't go to work, they can't put in effort, they can't move out of their parents' house, they can't become real functioning adults, they can't find true success, they can't find fulfillment in life, they can't do this, they can't do that. They just can't. All of these people are mistaken. They can absolutely do all of that. They could do it starting tomorrow. They could do it starting right now, this moment. They might be depressed, but they can act like they aren't. And the great thing is that in so many cases, the more you act like you aren't depressed, the less depressed you will be. The more you act like you care about the things in life that you should care about, the more you will actually care. The more you work hard, the more you will want to work hard. You just have to start. You have to put one foot in front of the other and start doing it. And you can start especially by getting out of bed and cleaning your filthy room. And this is why bed rotting and depression rooms are both today canceled. If you'd like to see what else I have to say, you can access my full show by going to dailywire.com or by going to the Matt Walsh Show Twitter page. Hope to see you there. Godspeed.